be the best chiropractor that you can be, serve people with honesty and integrity and efficiency. If you'll just do that, don't even worry about the money.
Keep your eye on the goal of serving the patient, and the rest will come. Well, Doctor, I appreciate you joining me. You and I have known each other for a while, and we've talked quite a bit. And I think you have such an interesting history, not only as a chiropractor, but also as president of the Texas Board of Chiropractic Examiners, that I think your knowledge and experience will benefit our listeners. One thing that impressed me when we first talked is that you come from a long line of chiropractors. Your grandfather and father were chiropractors as well, so you're the third generation.
Right, Wade. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. Yes, you and I met several years ago when you taught the required board hours in a seminar, and then we talked after that. And I've enjoyed getting to know you. And by the way, I really appreciate the newsletter that you send
Oh,
out.
good.
Very informative. I use it. I pass it on the relevant articles. So thank you for that. Yes, I am the third generation chiropractor in my family. My grandfather and grandmother, both of them they attended Texas Chiropractic College, and I have them both in a photo in my lobby, not standing next to each other in the
Hmm.
1924 class photo of Texas Chiropractic College.
I take it
Well,
they weren't married then.
that's my assumption. I'm pretty sure that they would be standing next to each other if they were, but they were not. Well, so my grandfather would have taught the following year in the school while my grandmother finished up her final year of the degree. And then they would have set up the first practice in Ranger, Texas. And we're saying that was 1925. I'm pretty
Wow.
sure that's accurate. So that's where they set up the first practice and started raising a family. That's where my father was born in 1930. They moved to Fort Worth in 1931 because of the oil boom. And so the industry moved to the big city. They followed it. And then my father with my mother as the office manager. And then I joined the practice, and my wife Martha became the office manager. And now, as you know, happy to announce that our son joined the practice 5 years ago, and he is our family's fourth generation.
What a legacy. What is one of your earliest memories? I assume you were at your father's clinic as a young lad. What are some of your earliest memories of chiropractic?
You're right. I was in my father's clinic as a child. Um, my earliest memory was the first Fort Worth office, which was downtown Fort Worth in what was the Neil P. Anderson building. And it was across the park from the Medical Arts building. And there's a story there too. But my first memory was actually walking up the stairs to the second floor of this downtown building, and that was the clinic. And I didn't spend a lot of time there, but I've heard stories about it since then that I'd love to share with you.
Well, so what was it about your experience with your father, or what brought you to chiropractic? Was it simply because of the legacy in your family, or was there something about it or your father that drew you to that profession?
Well, for me, yes, the legacy, the legacy was not important to me, and my father reiterated that, and he advised me to follow my own follow my own dreams. Don't worry about carrying on the family tradition. And in fact, he advised me to pursue other interests, other careers. My father advised me um, to pursue some business courses when I went to college. I didn't do that starting out. I was pre-med biology major,
Right.
but I also wanted to play football. So that's what took me to Austin College in Sherman, where I did that. Well, after 1 year, football injuries, um, wanted more excitement in a college experience. I transferred to the University of Texas, and when I was enrolling there, my father again said, "Hey, sign up for a business course." You know, and so I went down there and told them that, and they said, "Hey, we've got a thing for you. You can get a finance degree and do your pre med where the electives fall." That's what I did. So I have a degree in finance through the what's now the McCombs School of Business, and I completed pre med as well.
And so then by college, were you certain you wanted to go into chiropractic, or were you going into a medical? I mean, going to med school.
I was leaving all options open. As my mother advised me, she said, "Mark, don't burn any bridges." Well, I have to listen to mom. And so what I did is everything. And so preparing to take the MCAT, interviewing, completed pre med by the end of the junior year. My entire senior year in college at the University of Texas was the upper level business courses. And during that time, my mentors had me interviewing. So I actually got job offers from banks and oil companies, starting
Interesting.
out as bank officer, and um, and I looked at it. And during that time, I went to my father's office, asked him for some money for the weekend, and saw people walk in expressing pain, and then they would walk out feeling great. And I just said, that's what I want to do.
How different your life would have been had you become a bank teller or account manager.
Well, right, exactly. My wife Martha quips about, "Oh, you should have done that."
There's some days you probably wish you did do that. You mentioned you mentioned earlier about some stories about your dad's practice that you wanted to share.
Well, gosh, I think when I reference stories about my dad's practice, there's so many people, just one right after another. Really, I I don't have any specific stories to share on those patients. I do have a personal experience that I'd love to share with you.
Sure,
I don't
please.
recall if I did that when we had lunch at one time, but there was an incident when I was in college at UT, and for whatever reason, I started experiencing hives. I would break out in whelps on my arms, my back, my torso, my legs, miserable. And I went to the school's clinic where they prescribed Benadryl
Hmm.
tablets. So I would take a Benadryl and they would go away and then they would come back. I was allotted 3 per day. And so I timed it so that I would take one and they would go away and then they would come back and I'd take the next one. Well, then came a weekend a couple of weeks later. This is still going on. And I was scheduled to meet my dad for a hunting trip about an hour and a half away. Hopped in my car, drove there to meet him. We're out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a ranch. I started to break out in the hives, and I looked around and I thought, oh no, I forgot those Benadryl pills. And he says, "What are you looking for?" And I told him. He said, "Well, let's give chiropractic a try."
Hmm.
We went in the cabin. He adjusted me. It went away and never returned.
Really?
And I thought,
So, what was it? Some nerve condition? Then, I mean, is that a common thing that patients experience that you can help them with?
it's considered to be a neurological phenomenon, an
Hmm.
expression of nerve activity, stress,
Yeah.
probably, because there I was in college. And so, yeah, I put two and two together. I was, studying medical physiology, neuroanatomy, and everything in school, and realized, hey, first of all, yes, it makes sense to me that there's a connection here. Secondly, um, it's incredible what I experienced personally, and so that's when I really started considering chiropractic, that it's more than making people feel good. I saw that, I get it, experienced it myself through high school sports and all. But now there's this other thing that where I realized firsthand that we can impact health beyond musculoskeletal. Now, there's another
Yeah.
story behind that. We'll get
Yeah.
to it.
Well, that's a good segue into something I want to talk to you about. Because of your long experience with the practice of chiropractic, because you're also president of the Texas Board of Chiropractic Examiners, you've seen the practice of chiropractic in from many different perspectives. From the time you saw your dad as a young boy, him practice, to your practice today, and even the way your son now practices. How has the practice of chiropractic evolved? How has it changed with as the models for healthcare delivery have changed in our country?
Well, several things. When I attended school, we, of course, part of the curriculum was principles of chiropractic. That's where we learned the philosophy. And that's where I started to understand the connection between what I had experienced personally and uh, what is historically the basis of chiropractic, and the science model there, the philosophy and science of chiropractic. Um, I became interested also, having gone through pre med at UT and had classmates who were entering medical school, pursuing the various specialties within the medical profession, still talking to them, speaking their language. Um, I had decided that I would go into the specialty of chiropractic orthopedics,
Mhm.
and so when that became available after my graduation, about 3 years after I started practice, course came up, I enrolled, and that really patterned my practice more the into the musculoskeletal system, and specifically orthopedic conditions. I think that the big change that we've seen evolve is the embracement of chiropractic within the realm of healthcare. And
Mhm.
so now, of course, as you know, we're seeing multidisciplinary practices, which is way more common than it used to be. Incidentally, that's something that I had modeled almost 40 years ago and wanted to do that.
Interesting.
Never, yeah, never did, but instead just maintained a private practice and a referral network with my medical doctor counterparts.
Yeah, an integrated practice, for the listeners who aren't familiar with that term, is a type of practice that combines multi disciplines into a single practice, more often chiropractic and medical. And so you will have patients who can come into the clinic and receive chiropractic care or receive medical care depending on their condition, or oftentimes a combination of both.
Yes, sir. And whether you do that or you don't do that, you still have to have a network of providers in your community in all the various fields and maintain communication with them.
So you mentioned the integration. Payment models have also changed and continue to evolve. Kind of the buzzwords now in medical care reimbursement is value based care or value based reimbursement. Does does that have a role in the practice of chiropractic where multiple disciplines might work together to try to save on the overall costs of care to the patient or to the payors?
Oh, definitely. I think chiropractic is well positioned for value-based care model of reimbursement, whether it's a private practice or a multidisciplinary in the same facility. Um, doesn't really matter, but the chiropractor's role in that can uh, that's where we can really shine in cost containment, uh, speed of recovery time of injuries and even chronic conditions. And then the medical profession needs to really appreciate
Appreciate more, yes.
what we're doing and use us, refer to us for what we do. And in return, we have to communicate.
So I think you're thinking about kind of this constant tension, if you will, or definition of scopes of practice between chiropractic and the practice of medicine. And it seems like there is a natural tension because oftentimes, because of chiropractor's scope of practice, they can do things such as identify symptoms and oftentimes treat symptoms that uh, physicians might think are more in line with physicians' scope of practice. Tell us not only what you've experienced, but what the chiropractic board has the efforts you've made to try to better define and expand the scopes of practice for chiropractors.
Right. Well, chiropractic, as we discussed earlier a few minutes ago, um, influences the entire nervous system and therefore the whole person. In Texas, we are bound by Occupations Code 201, the statute, which is more narrowly defined in the as far as musculoskeletal system,
Sure.
the biomechanical condition of the musculoskeletal condition and the subluxation complex. As you know, the board adopted a rule including nerves within the definitions of musculoskeletal system and subluxation complex. The board was challenged on that by the TMA for over 10 years, 12 years. The case was pending, finally went to the Texas Supreme Court, and the board's position and our rules were supported in that decision.
I want to chat with you about artificial intelligence. You and I have talked about this before, and I know it's a topic that you're interested in, and at least, how artificial intelligence can be used or how it's changing chiropractic. Has the board started dealing with artificial intelligence or AI issues yet? I mean, should we expect a rule coming down the pike? How are y'all going to deal with artificial intelligence?
Wait, when I first heard that artificial intelligence was becoming a part of our lives, and as the board president, this was a huge concern of mine. One, how is an an artificial thing that's processing patient information? One, how are they going to keep that confidential?
Hmm.
Where is all this information up in the cloud, as we call it? I've since learned that there is such a thing as a local cloud that is
Yeah.
not accessed by anybody that's not approved. So I'm comforted with that. Now, here's the other thing. Oh, so in a treatment room, for example, so doctor walks into a treatment room, doesn't write anything down, doesn't type anything in the computer, just chats with the patient. The whole thing's being recorded and then processed with AI and then put in written format. There's a couple of issues there. One, as I mentioned, the cloud and confidentiality. Two is how do we know that AI was listening and recording this encounter the way that the doctor would have recorded it. The the solution is that the doctor has to read what was recorded and actually sign off on it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, you're articulating a specific use of AI in creating notes, soap notes, for example, or patient, recording patient visits or assessments. On one level, the board already has rules that govern patient confidentiality. It doesn't matter if it's AI or anything else. The chiropractor has an obligation, a responsibility to protect the patient's confidentiality. On another level, these tools seem to be so invasive. Everything from Microsoft Word to just about any transcription software is starting to introduce these tools. And certainly, chiropractors, like all professionals, have an obligation to make sure it's accurate. But human nature being such that it is, we're not often as diligent as we might be. Is this something that the board is grappling with, or other guardrails that maybe we need to put into place to further define what AI can be used for?
well, over the last several years and intensifying, we considered how AI would be used in chiropractic practice, administratively and perhaps clinically, and also how AI might be used in the agency, within the agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so, would we have to establish policy for all of those reasons? Was there an urgency to do that, or should we wait? And so we chose to wait and see what the state implemented through other agencies and required all agencies to adopt. Since then, that has happened. DIR,
Right.
for example, that's the Department of Information Resources, as you know. So we waited until they established policy and then we comply.
Yeah, and we're seeing legislatures, not just the Texas legislature, but less legislatures in other states write their own AI policies. Texas recent laws. Texas just passed their own one, which requires in the healthcare context that patients consent to the use of AI. And so that, of course, would apply to chiropractic or medical or dental or many other types of healthcare providers. I have clients that are using it for scheduling purposes. Patient might call in and get so the staff is busy with other patients, and so they may get an attendant that identifies themselves as AI and then helps them schedule an appointment without the help of a live person. Have those types of technologies, have they come into your practice yet? Are you using these tools at all? Or have you heard any horror stories about people who are?
So far, no horror stories. I stay up at night thinking about these horror stories on what can happen, and but so far I haven't seen them. I agree that a patient should have to consent to the use of AI with any encounter, first of all, and so doctor should, if the doctor is going to use the tool that I mentioned earlier, they should walk in and ask for consent right there on the spot. If they get it, then proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think chiropractors are going to be replaced by AI. For one, your adjustments, you need a physical person there to do the adjustments. I suppose there are going to be tools that can assist in that way and maybe make it even safer for patients. But you need a chiropractor there to do the adjustments themselves. Maybe there'll be some administrative benefits to AI, maybe some clinical, at least supporting chiropractors in note taking, provided there are proper safeguards in place. All of this to say that the practice of chiropractic has been changing and is changing. What do you perceive as some of the biggest challenges for chiropractors facing that they're facing now and will be facing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes. Wade, before I answer that question, can I tell you that I appreciate your comment about that chiropractors will never be replaced in a hands on profession? And in fact, now I'm thinking back on when you asked me what got me into the profession, that was one of the conversations that I had with my father and others, that lots of professions can be replaced with technology, but the hands-on, the art of chiropractic is never going to be replaced. Even if a machine could do it, it's not going to be the same.
Right.
Um, so anyway, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah. Well, and it's not only not because it's also physical and you're present with the patient. You develop a bond with the patient that I don't think that AI can replace. So it's not only the physical component of the treatment itself, but also the physical relationships that you develop with patients that I don't think AI can replace.
no, not the one-on-one interaction, not the emotional connection, the compassion that the doctor demonstrates to the patient. I don't see that happening with AI. And then there's the touch, the laying of hands. There's a physical neurological connection there that is healing, and that healing will not take place with a machine.
And even so, as valuable as that is, whether there be payment models, with commercial insurance that doesn't provide the same kind of reimbursement to chiropractic care that really should be provided, or maybe there's misunderstandings about chiropractic, maybe there's any number of challenges. What are you seeing new doctors coming out of chiropractic school? What are they facing now, and what are their challenges going to be going forward?
Well, their challenges are going to be um, clinical competency, first of all, and that's being addressed in chiropractic education in what's called CBE, competency based education, which is going to transition from number of hours at a desk in a classroom to demonstrating knowledge and skills. Uh, so that's going to happen. It, and that's good. It's going to reduce the cost of education. But the challenges are going to be the the chiropractor's role in the healthcare system and meeting some of the demands, as you mentioned earlier, the payer models.
Are you seeing is there an issue with chiropractors, especially younger chiropractors, feeling burned out? Or are you seeing maybe a dissatisfaction with kind of how the profession is perceived among the traditional uh, payer mix and healthcare complex?
Oh, I think the young chiropractor coming into practice has tremendous pressure on them. One, to be clinically competent, to build a practice, and then satisfy the payers if they're accepting insurance. The Providing the carrier with the necessary information, communicating with the other providers, as I mentioned. Tremendous amount of stress involved in that, which leads to burnout. And I think that burnout can be mitigated by efficiencies in an office, and that's what I've done. I feel like I've been working harder for less for the last 40 years. And something comes along which adds to the burden of what we have to do, but yet we don't get paid anymore. And they actually pay us less. So for a long time, I told my staff, well, there's only one thing to do, and that's just to be more efficient and cut expenses. So we start cleaning our own clinic, lay off the cleaning crew, say, we're going to empty the trash and vacuum the hallways ourselves. And then anything else that cuts cost. Ultimately, we have to make ends meet. And but I think that the chiropractor coming out now has other avenues for making a living, and so I understand that and support it as long as it serves the patients well, as long as it's not misleading and taking advantage of anyone.
I see a lot of my clients are moving as fast as they can to cash pay models. Do you see that, or is that just my clients? I mean, is that a trend in the profession, or just
It
my
is.
clients?
No, it is a trend. Yes, the demands, as we mentioned, to satisfy payer requirements for information, it's burdensome at the end of a big day to sit down and fill out forms and or to hire someone to help us do it is costly, and and then ultimately if we don't get anywhere with it, if we continue to be denied coverage, patients are denied coverage for our services, then it just it leaves the chiropractor to say, well, I'm just not going to do that at all. We'll go cash basis, and I'm not going to let this insurance company dictate what I can and can't do for my patient, and they go that route. I don't consider it to be fair completely. You know, here's a person, the patient who is paying premiums for a policy. They want to use it. So what we do in our clinic is we accept insurance, all except for one or two now
Hmm.
that just became totally unreasonable. And but we accept the insurance and treat the patient up to those policy limits, and then to have a discussion with the patient. Here's what we've accomplished. You're at the end of your um, insurance policy limits, or nearing it. Um, and so here we are in your progress. You've made 80% recovery to reaching our goals. And so I recommend that we go off of the insurance at this point and transition you to what we call maintenance care. They don't cover maintenance and wellness care. We're not going to say that's what, we're not going to ask them to. We're going to call it wellness and maintenance. And here's what it costs you.
I know patients, friends of mine that go to their chiropractor regularly, and it's for that very reason, for maintenance. You know, it helps keep them aligned. It helps improve and maintain mobility and range of motion, and they find it helpful and more as a maybe a preventative type of care than anything.
So the wellness model is not something necessarily that chiropractors came up with and invented. It's by demand. Patients who experience recovery from their condition and they say, "Thank you very much. Now keep me this way." How can we do that? So I tell at that point I tell my patients what most people need, and here's where we're going to start with you, and let's keep you healthy.
What about as we age? I mean, I'm getting to be of that age. I'm 55 now. I have noticeably less mobility and range of motion than I used to. Is there a role for chiropractic in for as we age, just to maintain some degree of basic functionality?
That's exactly what we want to do. We want to help a person not just maintain a high quality of life, feeling good, but abilities. We want to maintain their abilities. So, how do we do that? We measure someone's abilities. We have a discussion. What can you do? What are your limits in doing such and such? And what is it that you haven't been doing because of this painful condition that you want to get back into? And that's one of our goals. When we help them achieve that, then that accomplishes not just enjoyment of life, but when someone's engaged in recreational activities, then that enhances their cardiovascular system. Everything is better.
Yeah, when you can move and get out, and when you're mobile, it just has such a dramatically positive impact on your perception of life. When I mean, we all know people that are not mobile, and that as time goes on, it impacts your happiness and your quality of life. And so I applaud all the efforts to keep the mobility of folks as we age. Um,
Also, Wade, so furthermore, um, in long range planning for our patients, we discuss abilities, even in its basic form, such as getting off the floor. Say, Mrs. Jones, one of these days, you're going to have to get yourself up off the floor. So let's make sure you don't lose that ability. So here's your daily exercises, and it includes getting on the floor. We're not going to be satisfied with you standing here doing leg lifts. You're going to get on the floor, and you're going to get yourself up every single day.
you recently wrote an article in one of the board newsletters, and you talked about the chiropractor's responsibility to be responsible with information they receive from vendors and vet the information, especially the information that they then pass on to patients or that they allow to impact their treatment decisions. I've had clients, chiropractic clients, who are led astray by vendors that say either this care is good, or this care is reimbursable, or this care is FDA approved, or this treatment um, or this device. So, what was the cause? What was the impetus for that article? And what do you want chiropractors to know?
Well, so I appreciate your uh, asking this question. I attended a conference, and so thinking in terms of seeking the best evidence for anything that we provide for patients, I asked a vendor about the evidence that they provided for their clients, customers, which are the chiropractors who are attending the conference. Well, so we have a doctor patient relationship. So when we offer something to our patients, we have an obligation to share with them what's the evidence as we know it,
Mhm.
the best evidence, and then engage the process of informed consent. Here's what we think that you can benefit from it. Here's the basis. Here's the support for it in the literature. And then here's what I've experienced in my practice on what I think you're going to get from it. And that's it. No embellishment, not sugarcoating anything. And then, by the way, here are the potential downsides to this. Um, and then I considered the relationship between the doctors and these vendors, as you mentioned. We have to take what vendors tell us, what they provide us. They're trying to sell a product. And so we take that information and we don't just pass that on to our patients. We have to run that through our own process of seeking the best available evidence. Look things up in PubMed, read about it. Um,
But that's kind of the same responsibility you were articulating earlier about using AI, especially AI that maybe directs some treatment decisions. As professionals, we have the responsibility to vet the information we receive, be that filter out bad information, and convey good information to patients. That's part of what being a professional is all about.
Thank you. Same thing. There's a difference. Licensed healthcare professional and vendor, those are two different things and two different levels of responsibility. So, in writing this article, my ultimate purpose in it is to promote a higher level of a relationship between a vendor and the doctor, and for them to expect that the doctor's going to ask questions. We're going to want to know more. The vendor should know where we can find the information and pass it on. And then we look at that and then we dig deeper into it before we talk to a patient about it.
I perceive you as the chiropractor's chiropractor. Maybe that's because of your long history in the profession. Maybe it's because you preside over the licensing board. But when I think of a professional chiropractor, you're the one I think about. Given all of that experience and given the breadth of what you see in the profession in your role as president of the board, what is it that you want new chiropractors to know? What is it that you wish every chiropractor knew about the practice of chiropractic? Either maybe a philosophy or just an encouragement. What would you like to share with other chiropractors?
Thank you for asking that. First, I would hope that new practitioners coming in would understand that there's going to be a lot of work coming into practice. Expect it. Expect to spend long hours with treating patients, but longer hours considering their condition, researching it, finding out about it, and then being prepared to go back to that patient and tell them what you just discovered. Um, I want chiropractors to satisfy their patient's need for a healthcare professional in front of them to shoot straight, to tell them the truth about their condition, what we know about it, what we don't know about it, what to expect from treatment, what their chances are for requiring a referral down the road. All of those things should really come from the heart. We should treat every patient the way that we do our own loved one, our mother. Um, Nothing less. I think that chiropractors also need to own up to the uh, requirement, the non negotiable requirement to communicate with other providers. And instead of, say, just rushing away from the practice to go to the first tee box, um, realize that sometime before the end of the day, you got to sit down and write a report and review notes, ask questions, call a colleague, refer a patient's films to a chiropractic radiologist for review. Um, every chiropractor really should have a best friend in the profession, somebody that they routinely call and just knock things back and forth with, and hold each other accountable. So I know uh, my clinic notes, mine are pretty good, by the way, but
I'm
they're
sure
they're
they
not
are.
they're not as good as they could be.
Right?
Nobody's notes, clinic notes, are as good as they could be. We should routinely send our records to our best friend in the profession and ask them to critically review those and make comments on how I can do it better.
It sounds like you're encouraging folks to approach the practice of chiropractic in a maybe a servant leadership kind of role and be diligent and responsible with the care that patients have entrusted to you.
I was taught that by my predecessors, my father, my trusted mentors. Just be the best chiropractor that you can be. Serve people with honesty and integrity and efficiency, If you'll just do that and communicate with others, don't even worry about the money. Uh, I have the luxury of not ever looking at the money. My wife is our office manager. She gets the bills. She pays the bills. I just manage patient care. Any way that a chiropractor in practice can accomplish that, let somebody else do that, and for that person not to interfere with my clinical decision making, that's the ultimate practice, in my opinion.
Keep your eye on the goal of serving the patient, and the rest will come.
The rest will take care of itself. Exactly.
Well, Dr. Bronson, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I've already told you I see you as the chiropractor's chiropractor, and I mean that you're always willing to hop on and talk and help. You've answered questions for me when I've had questions about the standard of care and how a situation should be handled. So I appreciate your counsel and I appreciate your service to the state and to your fellow chiropractors. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for spending a Friday afternoon with us too after treating patients. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure chatting with you.
Anytime, sir. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's do it again.